Welcome to the AVAIL Podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. My name is Virgil Sierra, your AVAIL Podcast host and lead pastor of Vertical Church Iglesia Vertical in South Florida. Today, we're sitting down with Pastor Charles Nieman. Pastor Charles is the founding and senior pastor of Abundant Church in El Paso, Texas. And today, we're going to discuss mistakes that ministry leaders make. So lean in, leaders, and let's get started. Pastor Charles, I am honored to have you as a guest on the AVAIL Podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm doing very well, enjoying summer here in West Texas. So yeah, everything's good.
I want to mention, Pastor Charles, you and I had the opportunity to meet on an international trip where we went to equip pastors in Latin America, pour into them. And I remember that when I met you and I heard you teach and preach, man, I felt in my heart, this is a father. This is a pastor of pastors. And so I'm really excited about getting into our conversation. I'm also excited for our AVAIL audience to get to know you a little bit. So before we talk about this list that you've been putting together about mistakes that ministry leaders make, but before we go into that, share a little bit about yourself so our AVAIL audience can get to know you.
Yeah, as you said, I live in El Paso, Texas. I was born and raised here. I'm third generation El Pasoan. And so, yeah, it's a great being here. I got saved through Campus Crusade for Christ back in college.
Wow.
Along with my then girlfriend, who became my wife. And then several years later, we started the church. The church grew out of a home Bible study. I had no idea that it was going to become a church. I was just doing a Bible study for 12 high school and college age boys. And that was in 1977, and here we are, right? So, we've been through a lot. 12 and a half years ago, Rochelle passed away, went to heaven. To me, before her time.
Yeah.
We got through that, and that was a whole separate time in my life that was a lot of things have grown out of, but here we are now. I pastor now with my son and my daughter, my son Jared, my daughter Shannon. I am senior pastor, as you said. They are the lead pastors. And so they really taken on a lot of the duties today.
I love that. There's, being a pastor's kid and also taking on, there's a beautiful thing about that multi-generational ministry and leadership and calling. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Pastor Charles. I think there's a lot that we can learn from your journey. And what I love about you is you have a heart to teach, to share. You're kind of like an open book. And I think when we talked about recording this podcast, you told me that you had a list that you've been putting together as they kind of came up, which is basically mistakes that ministry leaders make. I want to start going through some of these. I believe we're probably going to need a part 2 to this conversation because I want to make sure we get into, and I want to learn. I want to learn from mistakes that you've had or you've made or maybe you've seen, and hopefully not have to make them myself. But can you tell me a little bit about how this idea came up of this list?
Yeah, I was out walking one day and just praying. I guess they call it a prayer walk, and so I was just out and I was just praying, for myself. And before I got into praying for my family, my churches, my friends, and in the process, I just heard a voice inside of me said, "I want you to start making a list of mistakes that you've seen ministry leaders make," and if I can even break it down another step further, young ministry leaders make.
Wow.
And a lot of these mistakes are not catastrophic, but they are limiting. Some of them could be catastrophic, if you made a couple of these mistakes. But I'm like you, and again, let me interrupt myself. I'm not saying I'm an expert, and no means am I saying this because I think I am wonderful. I was telling some guys the other day that the older I get, the more I feel like Peter with the boat, and it's like, depart from me, Lord, for I'm a sinful man.
Uh-huh.
I don't see myself as perfect, but it's just things I've observed, and I really have a heart for ministry leaders, and why make the mistake if you don't have to?
Yeah. Yeah, that's wise, and I will admit it. I am taking notes right now, and I will share this with people as well. And I'm encouraging all our Avail listeners and viewers, please take notes. The first one I want to bring up, because I have the list, you shared it with me. First mistake that I see on your list is you see people as a resource, not as people. Can you unpack
Yeah,
that for us?
yeah, and it's this one may be one of the hardest ones to keep in balance, because as ministry leaders, pastors, lead pastors, associates, whatever. I'm not going to go through that list every time. So, in whatever position we're in,
Yeah.
uh, we are in, if I can use this term, an industry where people are resources to us.
Yeah.
Their time, their giving, their serving, their volunteering. We don't have church without people.
Right.
So, and particularly when our ministries are small and our margins between success and failure are very thin. And said somebody the other day, if I lost 5 families this week, I would hate it, but I wouldn't feel it. There was a time when if I lost 5 families, I
Yeah.
might not be able to pay the rent.
Right.
I'm more than likely not going to get paid that month.
Mm-hmm.
So those margins are very thin. And I'm sure there's a lot of leaders right now that are watching who are living on those thin margins. So you see people automatically as resources. And we don't ever, but what I'm saying is you got to fight to see them as people first.
Right.
Yes, they do bring resources, but don't let it flip on you.
Yeah.
You got to fight to see them as people. And a part of that is, it's an expression you hear a lot about, right? Is don't just look at the crowd, see the person.
Right.
And, that's something I train myself to do. I see the person. I have a crowd, but I'm looking for the person, right?
Yeah.
The person by themselves, the person that's not standing during praise and worship, the person that's hanging back, and so I want to move towards them. I have somebody move towards them. Why? Not because they're a potential tither, but because they're a person.
Right.
And I think that and I've seen leaders get that flipped.
Yep.
And then if you get that flipped and you live in that where you see them as resources, you're not going to have a heart of love towards them. And you're actually going to end up manipulating yourself and or them to get them to give you the resource. And people aren't going to put up with that for very long. They see through that pretty quick.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think people eventually catch on to that, and I can't help but think of hearing, when you hear the stories of people, and I got hurt at church, and even though there's there's a lot there, but I think sometimes it could be this. Sometimes it's I didn't feel like I was known for who I am, rather known for what I could do, and I think you're right. I think it's easy to fall in that trap. Did you ever find yourself in seasons of ministry struggling with
I
that?
did. Absolutely. And that's why I put it first. In
Yeah.
my notes, I said, I did this. It seems impossible not to do
Yeah.
because we can't do what we do without people helping us, serving,
Right.
giving. We can't.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't. But
Yeah.
when I admit that, okay, I've got to have you. I've got to have this person.
Yeah.
But I'm going to discipline myself to see the person, not the asset or not the resource.
Yeah.
I'm going to see the person. And nobody can do that except me. I have to keep that battle. It's not either or, its proper relationship
Yeah.
and keeping that in its proper relationship. I see the person first and the resource second.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because as I think of the Gospels and Jesus's life, I think he modeled this so well for us.
Yeah.
No matter who it was, there was always that I think people were drawn to Jesus because of that, because he didn't see them as what he could do for him. He really saw them. All right, this is good. This is good. I'm already getting warmed up. I'm already thinking about people that I want to have conversations with here. Number 2, here's another one, another mistake that ministry leaders make. You expect commitment that you don't make yourself.
Right. I see a lot of times in leadership that leaders expect staff, volunteers, stay late, come early, do this, do that, but they don't. They don't. They don't come early. They don't stay late. They being leaders.
Yep.
So I asked the question. Are you staying late?
Right.
If you have an event, are you staying late? Are you a part of the cleanup crew? Are you there? Okay, I still am.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, I'm 75. I've got 48 years. Nobody's going to throw a rock at me because I get in my car and I leave. But I stay. Why? Because I'm asking them to stay.
Yeah.
Are you tithing? I've met pastor leaders that preach tithing, talk tithing, don't tithe themselves.
Wow.
What the heck? What's that about?
Right.
Are you willing to serve? Are you getting there early? Are you willing to go to the hospital? You, pastor, leader, are you willing to go to the hospital? Are you doing counseling, or are you above that now? Are you bored with that? Right? What do I care? Well, you better care.
Yeah.
You better care. I've gotten many of the greatest teaching series I have ever taught by sitting in counseling sessions, listening to my church talk to me.
Yeah.
Right? Are you willing to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, Verge, as I travel around still, and I sit in conferences, and I'm in the back room and I listen to stuff going on. I see leadership in churches, sadly, in a lot of churches, as a one-way street. Everything comes to the pastor, but nothing comes out.
Wow.
And that is so dangerous.
Yep.
So dangerous, because that's where we develop overinflated egos, way too high sense of our value of ourselves. The guys that I watch that do that are very short-tempered. It's like, the best way I can describe it is they're like black holes, right? They suck in all the energy, but nothing comes out.
Right.
And I know what guys say. Guys argue with me, and they'll say, well, no, I give out on Sunday one day.
Right.
What are you doing the rest of the week? And what kind of example are you giving to your staff, to your leadership team? I just think you have to make that same commitment. And if you don't, it's going to end up biting you.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't help but think, as I'm hearing you speak about this one, I can't help but think of the concept of servant leadership. I think that term, which is not so known in the marketplace and in the world, but definitely from ministry leaders and pastors, I think the essence really is servant leadership. Again, Jesus modeled this for us, and
Apostle Paul.
Yeah, Apostle Paul. It seems like sometimes, whether it's maybe I've been doing this for many years, or maybe I did that already, I don't have to keep doing it. Maybe there's a point where some pastors just feel like, I don't have to. That's below me now.
Well, I think, and very well it might be. But when people know you don't have to do it, and they see you doing it,
right?
What an impact that has. I mean, what an impact it has. I don't know another way to express it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have people that's their job description, but I'm in there running the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what kind of example does that set? I think it sets an incredible example.
Yeah.
It also keeps your heart humble.
That's
and
right.
in the right place.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. This is good. Mistakes that ministry leaders make. Here's another one. Here's another one from your list, Pastor Charles. You disrespect other people's time.
Yeah. Yeah. I see this a lot. You know, I'm the boss. I show up late. I'm the boss. I decide not to come, and I give you 5 minutes notice that I'm not going to be there. If people did that to the leader, they would go ballistic.
Right.
Ballistic. But they do it. They take liberties with other people's time. And so what I would say to you is be on time to meetings. You know, be on time.
Yeah.
Now, things happen to everybody. Okay. I was late to this meeting today because I had traffic on the freeway that I had not anticipated. I should have. I didn't. But I wasn't 20 minutes late. But anyway, things happen, and if you get hung up, like if you're supposed to be at a staff meeting and you get hung up, call and tell them that you're on your way. I did this just last week. They had a detour at my house that I didn't know they were going to detour. So I called and said, hey, I'll be there in 10 minutes, just so they knew. Now they went ahead and started the meeting, but they knew and the room heard me, right? And I'm on my way. I'll be there in 10 minutes. To me, it's just being respectful and to make the effort. But again, all of us have things that happen that we didn't anticipate. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a habit.
Right.
You're habitually late or you miss meetings. It's
Right.
your habit. And it's not, to me, it's not right. It's not right. The most valuable commodity people own is their time. And if I don't respect their time, why do I think they're going to respect my time? Why? Why should they? Because I have the title? I told somebody the other day, title and $7 will get you a latte at the coffee shop, right? I mean, title means nothing. William Wallace said, men don't follow titles, they follow courage. So who cares about your title? I don't care about your title. I really don't. I don't care. Give me a life to example that I can follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you respect people's time, they will give you their time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I think, as the more time I am, and obviously I'm following a little bit behind you, Pastor Charles, but the more years I have in ministry, I'm realizing there are areas that need to be strengthened. There is progress that needs to be made. And I love leaning into conversations like this because I don't want to have to make those mistakes if I don't have to, right? And so having a voice like your voice is kind of like a coach's voice, like a pastor's voice, like a counselor saying, hey, keep an eye on these things. These things they can really make or break you. They can really hurt you in your leadership. Here's another one. Let's go. Continuing on the list, mistakes ministry leaders make. Here's another one. You don't continue to get better. Yeah,
this has always been a big deal to me. And it is, the reality that everything around us is getting better. Everything, right? This iPhone that I have now is leap years ahead of the first one they brought out. What are we on now? 14 or 15 or 150? I don't know. I lost track of them. But I mean, they're constantly getting better. The car that I drove here today is leap years, leagues, light years ahead of the car that I used to drive in the 70s and 80s. And those were great. This one is so far ahead. Everything we do, the homes we build, the watches we wear, I mean, it never stops. Everything is getting better. If I'm going to be the kind of leader that I feel I need to be in the culture that I'm living in, I've got to be getting better.
Yeah.
And a part of that is a better pastor, a better father, a better grandfather, a better friend, a better Bible teacher, a better leader, a better listener, a better communicator. For years, Serge, I have listened to my teachings, and I am my biggest critic. And I go through them, and I'm like, why did you say that? Why do you keep repeating that phrase over and over again, right? And
Yeah.
so, I think everything is getting better,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes from the seed of that was planted in me when I looked up in a Bible dictionary the word repentance. And repentance has a twofold definition. It means to go from evil to good and good to better.
Mm.
So evil to good is kind of like the original start in your walk with God, right? You were this way,
Mm-hmm.
God moves you to good, but he doesn't leave you at good. Now, for the rest of your life, he's going to be challenging you to go from good
Mm-hmm.
to better, good to better. And I think we have to keep doing that, right? That we keep getting better as a spouse, as I said,
Mm.
as a parent, as a disciple, as a pastor, teacher, friend. We keep getting better. And we don't allow ourselves to become stagnant,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
like a friend of mine once said, what does stagnant water do? It stinks. I don't want my life to stink.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe with all my heart that if we put a banner over our lives, the banner should be better, better, better.
Yep.
And that should be the theme. I want my church to get better. I want me to get better. I want my kids to get better. I want my grandkids to get better. But I'm not going to just say it. I'm going to help it to happen.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I can't help it to happen if I'm not doing it myself. Right? If
Yep.
I'm not pushing myself. And as I said, I think the theme better, better, better should be the theme of our lives.
Yeah. I agree. That's a good word. That's a good word. I want to keep this rolling, Pastor Charles,
Okay.
because I want to keep it rolling because I want to keep taking notes, to be honest with you. All right, here's the next one. Here's the next mistake many leaders in ministry make. You live with a sense of entitlement.
Well, this one we could spend 2 days on, right? You
Yeah.
live with a sense of entitlement. And let me start with this thought. All of us should be respected.
Mm-hmm.
We should be. All
Yep.
of us should have people that respect us and honor us. But the mistake is when you expect it.
Right.
When you expect that people should honor you, I look at respect and honor as hot fudge on my ice cream. My ice cream is I'm doing my job. I'm doing it the best I can. I'm doing it with the right heart. And if I'm honored and respected for that, that's ice cream. That's hot fudge on my ice cream.
Right.
Where I think we get in trouble, I've seen a lot of guys get in trouble, is they expect to be respected. They expect
Right.
to be honored. I would say be grateful when you're complimented or when you're honored. Be grateful for it.
Yeah.
Don't think that you should have gotten it. Be grateful for it. Be thankful, be grateful, as I said, when you're complimented. But don't act as though you were owed that because you're in the ministry. Don't act that way. And I've seen it. And we just finished a teaching here at our church on humility and living a life of humbleness. And I said, in my life, humility is a very hard word to define, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And the Bible translators say that in the Hebrew, the Old Testament, and the Greek in the New Testament, the hardest word to translate from Hebrew to English and Greek to English is humility.
Mm.
It's kind of like we submit to you that it's this, but you're going to know it when you see it.
Mm.
And I think we've all known it when we saw it, And my goodness, Verge, we've all known it when we didn't see it.
Yeah, for sure.
When we saw the arrogance and the rudeness and
Yeah.
the sense of entitlement. You
Yeah.
know, I've heard preachers talk about entitlement in society, and they walk around the most entitled guy in the room.
Mm.
And be thankful for whatever respect or compliment you receive, because honestly, I don't think we're in this for that,
Mm-hmm.
or we shouldn't be.
Right.
It's nice when you get it, but I'm also going to say, if you are a leader and you are constantly needing affirmation and constantly every Sunday you got to have so many people come up and tell you how wonderful you are and how magnificent you are, I'm prophesying right now, you won't make it 10 years.
Right.
You won't. You won't.
Yeah.
I've been pastoring this church 48 years. I have thousands of people that come to church here. Last Sunday, we began a new series on temperance. And it was one of the first times that me, my daughter, and I did the weekend services where people stood after in a line and thanked us for the message. Most of the time, they just get up and they're out the door. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I need that, oh, you're wonderful, oh, you're great, oh, you're this or you're that, or why aren't they showing me their love? You're not going to make it.
Mm.
You're not.
Yep.
I don't care how gifted you are. You're not going to make it long haul.
Right. Right.
Yeah, come see me in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
20. Not
Yep.
20 months, not 2 years, not 5 years. 20 years.
Yes.
You're going to be so frustrated and so angry and lashing out. And I promise you, I've seen it, Vern. I've seen this. This is not me speculating. I've seen it. And I'm not being judgmental. What I'm saying is, God, I'm glad I saw it so I don't fall into that trap.
Right.
Now let me help some other guys so they don't fall into that trap, because it's terrible. And I think sometimes guys think that because they're in the ministry that they're deserving of all of this, or because they have a title or they have a position.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, stop it. Really? Really? And
Yeah.
I had a guy get mad at me one time. He was here speaking because I didn't introduce him as Dr. So-and-so the first night.
Mm.
And I wasn't doing it to be disrespectful. But, I mean, he got really bent out of shape.
Right.
But he didn't talk to me. He called his office and had his office call my office to tell my secretary that he was offended. Well, why didn't you just come to me?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Listen, Romans 12 says not to think of yourself more highly than you ought to think. What he did say was think highly of yourself, but don't think more highly of yourself.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need a good self-image and a good, strong value of who we are. But you better be careful that that ego doesn't get in there, and pretty soon you're walking around, ooh,
Yeah.
With this sense of entitlement.
Yep. That's a big mistake. I think that's a big mistake that both older, more experienced veteran leaders can fall into, and also maybe young leaders can fall into as well, if they're not careful. I think we have time for two more, Pastor Charles.
Okay.
Two more. Here's another mistake that ministry leaders make. You forget, I want to hear about this one. You forget you are the face of the church.
Yeah. This one, you may have some guys turn the podcast off as we get into this one here. So, okay, I'm putting a disclaimer out there.
Yes, sir.
But so next to that, I would say you need to act, look, and dress the part.
Come on.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is one guy's opinion. You need to act, look, and dress the part. And what are you looking like when you're up on the stage?
Right.
What do you look like? Right? I've been in meetings and seen guys get up on the stage, and I swear they slept in the clothes they have on.
Oh my
They
goodness.
got up and went. I mean, I asked a question. I was talking to some guys in Australia about this. I said, do you guys ever even know what an iron is? You know, when I travel or before I get up to speak, I look at my shirt, I look at my jeans, I look at my jacket. If they need to be pressed, I press them. When I travel, the first thing I do is I unpack my clothes, I get the ironing board out, and I iron my jackets, my shirts. Why? Because I'm representing the Lord Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. And in addition to that, I'm representing the thousands of people that call Abundant their church. Also, if I can be so bold as to say, I'm trying to reach, now hear this, my generation.
Mm-hmm.
And when I travel a lot of times, I hear a lot of the younger guys, they're like, we're going for these 20s and 30s. Good for you. But can I just be real blunt? 20s and 30s do not build your sanctuaries. 50, 60, and 70-year-olds build your sanctuaries.
Wow.
Your 20s and 30s bring a lot of energy to your church, and they're great volunteers, and they're going to give. But the guys that have money that make things happen are the 50 and ups, right? They're the guys
Yeah.
that have disposable income. The kids are gone. The colleges are paid for. Here they are, okay? And so I'm just going to be really blunt, Verge. Don't look like a clown, right?
Yeah.
And iron your clothes and, think about wearing a jacket and one that actually fits and looks nice on you, and press your jeans and clean your shoes, and hey, comb your hair, trim your beard, right? Don't look like Grizzly Adams up there. And you can be casual, but you can look nice too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, a lot of people say, well, that's all superficial. Okay. I just submit to you that you got to remember you are being watched constantly.
Right.
There is nowhere I go in my community where I'm not being watched. That is a fact.
Yep.
I've lived with that for 40 years. There is nowhere I don't go. So, think about who you're representing, not only the Lord, the people in your church, and look the part. Look
Yeah.
the part. I'm not saying you have to wear a 3-piece suit and a tie every day. I don't wear one, but I don't leave the house, with clothes that don't fit, and be honest. Just because it's in style doesn't mean it's my style,
Right. Yeah.
right? There are certain clothes I can't wear skinny jeans. I'm too big, right? I can't wear them. Now, I've had people tell me I should wear them, but I'm not. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. It wouldn't be authentic. It wouldn't be authentically.
And that's not who I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you are.
Yeah.
For
I
whatever
like.
it's worth.
I appreciate that. I think we need to hear the voice of fathers in our lives that help us pay attention. And it's not about trying to wear Saul's armor and being someone you're not. It's just about be respectable and think about you're making a statement with how you present yourself. And I think this is important. I think you're touching on areas which are both important in the spiritual leadership aspect, in the organizational leadership aspect, but then even in the personal leadership and an example. I love this, Pastor Charles. We are going to continue on another part 2 of this so we can finish or at least go through a good portion of your list of leaders that mistakes that ministry leaders make. Pastor Charles, really quick, I would love for people to know how they can learn more about you online, maybe connect with you, find out what other resources you offer. Where's a good place for them to go?
No, thanks. Yeah. Well, we have a church app. It's called Abundant Church. You can find it in your app store. It's free, of course. It has all of our teachings, everything about us. It's got everything up to date. I'm on Instagram, Charles Nieman.
Hmm.
There, I don't think I'm on Twitter anymore or whatever. Is it now X? I might be. I don't think I am, but and I'm sure somewhere out there there's a Facebook. You can tell I'm really not into all this stuff, right? But yeah, so that's all there, and
Beautiful.
I hope
Beautiful.
people check us out.
Yeah, and I know charlesnieman.com has a little more information about some of the stuff you've done and
Right.
a book you've written as well. And Pastor Charles, this is for me. It's always good. And by the way, resources are helpful for leaders. I always talk about the AVAIL Journal, which comes out quarterly. Hey, by the way, if you're watching or listening and you're not subscribed, availjournal.com. Try our free trial subscription that we want to offer you. Check it out. Great contributors, great leaders, great pastors, great content. Because as a leader, you want to do what Pastor Charles is saying. You want to get better, and you need resources, things that are going to help you along the journey. Pastor Charles, what's a final thought you want to leave for this episode?
Yeah, I'm really big, and I really believe in this. Never underestimate the power of just being willing to put one foot in front of another.
Yeah.
Just put your head down and grind it out. There are great days, and there are days in this profession that stink. And you've just got to be willing to put your head down and keep putting one foot in front of another.
Good word. That's a good word. On behalf of Dr. Sam Chand, Martijn Van Tilburg, our whole AVAIL team, thank you, Pastor Charles, for taking time to record this podcast episode, and thank you for pouring into leaders. It's a real blessing. We honor you. We bless you for your leadership and almost 50 years, over 50 years of ministry, and almost 50 years of being the lead pastor of Abundant Church. You are a blessing to all of us.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the AVAIL Podcast. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com. Make sure to claim your free trial subscription of the AVAIL Journal at availjournal.com. And as always, I'm your AVAIL Podcast host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the AVAIL Podcast. God bless you.